What are some myths people still strongly believe? This comes due to the fact that he went to school in Switzerland, where the grading system is inverse to the German. German's grading system says that 1 is the best and 6 is the worst, and in Switzerland 6 is the best and 1 is the worst. He had 6 in maths and science but was all in all just an average student, source CE equals Mic2 book, with grades around 4.5 to 5. These marks would have been tremendously bad in German grades. I was gonna say the same thing. This ignorant idea always annoyed me. I knew someone who went to donate blood at a blood drive in college, and she overheard a fucking nurse saying this, and noped the fuck out. When I heard that, it pissed me off more than it had any right to. Apparently her argument for it was, that's why your veins are bluish. I can't. Fat turns into muscle during workout. Edit. Yes, I know many people who actually believe that fat cells transform into muscle cells when you work out, and skinny people need to get fat before gaining muscle. It's not metaphorical. Also, another common fitness-related myth is sweating on its own causes fat loss, which is not true. It's only water weight that'll be lost. So many people think narwhals are mythical. A more serious one, that people who have been hurt or oppressed are morally better. My mom thought that because she had been hurt by her dad, whatever she did to the family was somehow justified. The Hutus were legitimately oppressed by the Tutsis, but to be fair, that comes back to Leopold, the patron saint of Africa. All people are fundamentally similar. My mom got annoyed with me for talking about animals that don't even exist. I had to inform a 64-year-old woman that narwhals are real, but they aren't in aquariums, and not a whole lot is actually known, but they are real. Then when I got home I spammed her with pictures of all my narwhal stuff, and she thinks I'm clueless. At least I know that unicorn whales are real. Wasn't Leopold, Rwanda was a German colony, not a Belgian one. But yeah, they had the idea that the Tutsis were Hamitic, while the Hutu were of an even lower race, and so gave the Tutsi minority many opportunities in the colonial governance after the Germans left. This practice of Hamitic supremacy stuck around, and soon enough you get the Rwandan genocide. Edit. Checked again. They were indeed a German colony, but became a Belgian-ruled League of Nations mandate after WWI. The Germans introduced the pro-Tutsi policies. They were maintained during Belgian rule, and further maintained by the post-colonial government. Leopold II died in 1908, some 10 years before Rwanda ended up under Belgian rule. That's one of the most disgusting trends nowadays. I had a friend who thought that since he was gay and gays were victims in the past, all their suffering transferred to him and he was now a victim, meaning you could never talk bad about him, had to agree with everything he says. He can act and be as racist, sexist as he wants, and if you complain you are a homophobe. The level of mental gymnastics required for this is quite insane. People who have been hurt or oppressed are morally better. That was my dad in a nutshell. He beat the shit out of me, while literally telling me it wasn't abuse, because his stepfather had used electrical cords to whip him as a child, and occasionally burned his fingertips with a lighter when he was a toddler to teach him not to touch stuff. This isn't abuse. I know what abuse is. Like no ... you're both terrible monsters. Or that hymens fucking cover the vagina at all. Hymens are just like a ring around the edge. Women don't need to bleed at all. We just usually lose our virginity from stupid boys who don't know a thing about sex. If a girl is properly relaxed and loose, which won't happen until we stop talking about how painful sex will be when the hymen breaks, she won't bleed. Sorry for ranting. I just hate how badly people are still educated about female anatomy and sex. As the mother of a child on the spectrum, this stupid fake report has been a thorn in my side. I noticed something was off at 2 months old when he wasn't looking at me or smiling back or responding to his name ... long before he had the MR. When he was diagnosed years later, we realized my husband also checked off the boxes ... so did his dad and his brother. It's genetic, and if people would truly look at themselves or their kids, they'd realize that it was there long before vaccines were invented. and they keep adding to the list of things vaccines cause. According to them, vaccines contain fetal DNA. They don't. That turns kids gay and or trans, and that there's no proof homosexuals and trans people existed before vaccines. Have you ever checked theirs for their fictional vaccine injuries? They list the dumbest thing as being a vaccine injuries, including bad bleach jobs, tattoos, Gulf War syndrome, gunshot wounds, motorcycle accidents, body crushing, whatever that is, suicide, murder, etc. That women pee out of their vaginas, and for people are just now discovering this, women do not indeed pee out of their vaginal canal, they urinate from their urethra, which is located at the opening of the canal, or it could be a little more upwards towards the clitoris. Edit. I never thought my first award would be on anatomy of females. For more clarification, people use the word vagina incorrectly, describing the whole outside and inside portion. The vulva is everything on the outside, such as the clitoris, urethra, labia minora and majora, and the vaginal opening. The vagina is the whole canal that goes to the uterus, ovaries, cervix, and fallopian tubes. The urethra is in different places on every female. Sometimes it's closer to the clitoris or it's closer to the vaginal opening. Sometimes it may be a little bit inside the vaginal opening. I highly suggest people look at a diagram of a vulva to better educate yourselves and to not spread false information. Okay, question. Has anyone ever bothered to find out how many people actually believe that women pee out of their vaginal canal and how many just use vagina as a broad colloquial term for everything that's down there? Because people doing the latter wouldn't be factually wrong, but merely using imprecise language. Oh, it is so much worse than a myth. If you really want to know where that came from, strap in. It's a horrible tale. https://www.youtube.com/watch v=8 by KizXFFRC TLDR. Andrew Wakefield made it all up by preying on vulnerable parents who got the combined MMR vaccine, because a lawyer paid him to, since the lawyer's company wanted to profit by selling separate MMR vaccines. When he didn't get the results he wanted, he attempts to use children in playgrounds for testing outside of medical settings. His study lacked any scientific rigor or, indeed, evidence at all, and he made up illnesses and hyped it to the press. He's a truly terrible person. He now lives in a mountainside ranch in Texas funded by his deluded followers. After being shamed out of the UK following and expose, he continues to sell and profit from anti-vax rhetoric and lies, perpetuating the issue. People assume that any type of food is bad for you at some point in history. Kellogg's was started as a company that promoted a protein-free lifestyle. I had to watch a video about it in school. It was borderline cultish. They had all this false science supposedly proving that protein is bad for you, and even promoted the use of yogurt enemas. Can't make this stuff up. Eventually people realized that it was all BS, and now we have the cereal we do today. Lol, the govt already has you microchipped. It's just externally placed in your fucking smartphone, you dumb fucking twat. Not you. The people who actually believe the delusion. They already know everything about you, because you willingly submit all of your personal details to websites and social media. Why the fuck would they need a microchip, and how the fuck would it ever be installed? Into what operating system? Because that mush between your ears doesn't and will never come close to qualifying as such. We had to rush a newly intubated and ventilated COVID-plus patient from our COVID step-down unit to our CCU earlier in the shift tonight. As we were getting him settled in and whatnot, somehow we started making super snarky comments like, "But COVID is fake, and it's a conspiracy by Democrats," and stuff like. My comment was, I have the best Wi-Fi since I got the vaccine, and it just beams right into my head. I don't even need my phone for that anymore. Also, our COVID patient count has more than quintupled in the past 3 weeks, so shit's getting really real now. Yay. Phones are already super effective at that. They have cameras, GPS, and people tape their personal information into them all the time. Photos even have location tags attached unless you specifically say no. Also, I'm fairly certain that every keystroke is stored, so whether you search it or not, the government could find it if they wanted to. People freak out about an injection but purchase self-surveillance machines and carry them everywhere. That fucking money dudes makes women's vaginas loose or alters their appearance. It's honestly so dumb. Why would a vagina become looser if a woman fucked 50 guys 5 times each, instead of one dude 1,000 times? If you don't want to be with a woman who has fucked 50 guys, that's fine. But believing that her vagina is now broken because of it, well, that's just stupid. The whole women attempt suicide more, men complete it more statistic. It's all down to the definitions being used. Previous studies included acts of self-harm and the attempt definition regardless of whether the person wanted to end their life. This causes a bias towards women because they are more likely to report self-harming via cutting. The problem is that we also know that self-harm is not correlated with suicide ideation. When you define attempt as intentional self-harm with the intention of being fatal, the definition everyone use when quoting the line above, the number of attempts between men and women start looking more equal. It's a pet peeve of mine because the statistic is not only potentially wrong but it serves no purpose but a tool for use within the competition of who has it worse. Source: https://www.uptodate.com/contents/suicidal ideation and behavior in adults #H3704429499. Aren't all taxes socialism? The real rub here is that socialism is considered bad when we pool resources to pay for things that help all of us. What's the fucking problem? I like having a snowplow push the snow off of the road to my house that taxes paid for. I would also like it if instead of having a bunch of for-profit health insurance companies, we just created one really big non-profit health insurance company so that people didn't go bankrupt trying to keep a child from dying or something. That Columbus was a good person. He gave a woman away to his crew members to Arat. He used to kidnap and enslave people. His settlers used to traffic children. Mass suicides were committed because Indians didn't want to work with him. He forced Indians to collect gold for him or die. He almost wiped out the entire population in his Pongola. Literally everything he ever did was bad and it was covered up cause he found America. The Great Library of Alexandria housed troves of scientific information, and its destruction at the hands of Christian anti-science zealots held back human progress by centuries. All of those details are false. When it was destroyed, it hadn't been used to store books in centuries. When it stored books, it doesn't store anything remarkably special. There were libraries all over antiquity and book copying was standard. So anything worth copying in Alexandria would have existed in other libraries anyway. It was burned down once accidentally by Julius Caesar, centuries before its destruction. When it was destroyed by Pope Theophilus, the main issue they had with it was that as a museum, literally, shrine for the muses, it was a pagan religious building. It's all laid out on the Wikipedia page. https://n.m.wikipediaorg/wiki/library_of_Alexandria. This does happen and I've seen it. In a trailer park years ago, a woman was begging for help in her trailer while her boyfriend was trying to get in with baseball bat. My mom told me not to call 911 because we'd get roped in and if she really was in trouble she'd call herself. Fast forward 10 minutes and he breaks in and beats her to death with a bat and leaves. Police weren't notified by anyone but her landlord 2 days later. We all assumed someone else called. No one did. Trickle-down economics. Giving rich people breaks doesn't make for a wealthy middle class and the reduction of poverty. It just makes richer rich people. See, Jeff Bezos, the greatest generation, and their parents, spent their lives creating opportunities and opening doors for their children and grandchildren, and the baby boomers walked through the door and immediately slammed it shut for everyone after them. High corporate tax rates, strong unions, high estate taxes, strong civic policies, like building libraries, schools, and investing in education and literacy programs, low housing costs, to speak of a few, created a thriving and growing middle class. The children of that middle class lower corporate tax rates, busted unions, cut estate taxes, cut funding to schools and healthcare, implemented requirements for down payments and credit checks for home ownership, and pushed their kids to go to university while making education so expensive that it saddled their descendants with oppressive debt. The rich got richer, and lobbied government to let them keep making themselves richer while simultaneously making it harder for everyone to make ends meet. Giving the rich more money doesn't help you. The issue is physics. Anyone who has looked at the hard math of traveling hundreds of light years can see the problems. It takes like 20,000 years, otherwise they must possess FTL, which our understanding of physics prevents. Believe in alien visitation? Please enlighten us as to their means of locomotion. Thanks. Grey aliens are basically a modern version of trolls and fairies, a cultural manifestation of our collective unconscious. Otherwise they must possess FTL, which our understanding of physics prevents. Negative energy density is consistent with both general and special relativity, but there's no current way of producing it to a usable or manageable quantity. The Casimir effect is a well-documented physical example of its existence. If a large amount could be generated and controlled, Alcubierre drive, then it would be able to produce a local gravity envelope that would traverse FTL with no time dilation, since inside the envelope would technically be static. A lot of people who grew up in the 50s and 60s to this day still believe lemmings commit mass suicide by jumping in the Arctic Ocean. While it's true lemmings will migrate and bunch up at a river or lake shore, they can swim across it and frequently do. However, as is the case with many migrations, some lemmings will misjudge the length of the swim and accidentally drown. Despite the vast majority of them surviving the swim, the remnant few corpses fed a long-standing local legend of lemmings using large bodies of water to become an hero. Suddenly, the myth was wildly popularized by a Disney documentary, White Wilderness. This documentary showed dramatic footage of a column of lemmings running over a cliff into the Arctic Ocean. Well, so says the voiceover at least. The truth is, the footage was not taken in the Arctic Circle, but in Alberta. They weren't at the Arctic Ocean, they were at the Bow River. And lemmings are not native to that area, so the ones shown in the film were imported or purchased from local children who kept them as pets. Yeah, dark turn. The lemmings were then disoriented by putting them on turntables, stressed, abused, and then chased over the cliff by the Disney film crews. For decades afterward, the lemming has been erroneously attributed to mindlessly suicidal creatures. While it may make for an amusing reference in a newspaper comic or serve as a versatile idiom attributed to destructively reckless abandon of all reason, there's still a significant contingent of older folks who saw Disney's White Wilderness and legitimately believe the myth about Jamestown lemming cults. Me holding a potato chip in my hand. Are you real? Do you exist? Do I simply wish to see you and therefore conjure you with my mind? Do I have such powers to create from nothing? Could I send it back to nothing? Is what I am experiencing simply insanity, or is it something more? Is it something divine? Is it a message? Or is it simply a potato chip and a vague comment about chips on Reddit? The stock market has a lot to do with that too. I usually point at my own personal meager gains in the stock market to my friends who argue with me about this, and they're always amazed at it. Then I'm like, if I put 10 times as much in here it would have been 10 times the profit. Guess how much a millionaire can put in? The stock markets aren't work. It's literally sitting on your ass and making money, and rich enough people don't even do it themselves. They pay other people to do it. It's a ridiculous system. And to sit there and tell me that you think only hard work gets you rich, like 40% of the world's wealth is inherited. That means there's dudes with ludicrous amounts of money who never worked a day in their lives getting richer because they pay a guy to do their stocks. And they are the same people buying politicians and property. That attitude needs to fuck all the way off. When taken as a societal average, the 77 cents thing is more or less average, the total amount of money made by men versus total amount made by women. When normalizing by career choice, there are several in which women make more, such as nursing. However, the majority of careers where there's a significant difference in wages, men earn more than women. most engineering-adjacent positions. This is even true when accounting for things like maternity leave. Additionally, women are less likely to be promoted, exacerbating this issue. That all said, a significant portion of jobs are roughly within margin of error territory. These gaps are also trending towards shrinking as far as I know. Doctor, there is a gap, but its size depends on how it's measured.